Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Scribo here, outside of my office at the Stage of Transformation in Wareham, Massachusetts. It's a beautiful spring day. It's still spring. We don't have summer until the 20th. That's the solstice. And then the next day, we have a very powerful um, new moon solar eclipse at 1 degree um, of Cancer. And we are in the middle of eclipse season. Eclipse season, I guess, officially started with that full moon eclipse in Sagittarius that occurred on the 5th of June, and it was a very powerful eclipse. Um, in that there were a lot of powerful aspects happening. It was in a pulse eclipse. A pulse means well, it barely. It barely was within the 18 degrees to the nodes. In order for there to be eclipse, the full moon or the new moon needs to be within 18 degrees. And I think it was at 14. So it was sort of, as eclipse goes, it wasn't a particularly powerful eclipse, but as we experienced it, it certainly was. It was sort of the day that changed everything in a way. And we have been sort of rolling along ever since, especially here in the United States with all of the protests and the COVID 19 and a crazy president, which isn't new, right? But with everything else on top of it, it brings to a whole new level, I would say. So I'm sitting here yesterday or the day before, I did a reading on the conjunction of Mars and Neptune. And today, I think I want to do a reading on the Eris Pluto square. And you might say, who is Eris or what is Eris? I've never heard of Eris before. If you listened to my monthly, I talked about this, my monthly for June. If you listened to my morning walk through the garden today, that would be for the 14th and 15th, depending on where in the world you were. I described it there today as well. Just gotta wait for the plane to go over. It's one of those uh, little planes. Not we don't get big planes over this. Luckily, over this house where I used to live in Jersey City, you would always hear the jets go over. I don't know. They were probably going to Newark or LaGuardia or something. It was all close by. So, yeah, I want to take a look at this aspect now. It's occurring exactly today, which is significant because today is the President of the United States' birthday. And while his solar return was actually yesterday, it is a very powerful aspect for him because the aspect as it falls in Washington, D.C., has a 30-degree Leo ascendant, the actual aspect, and that is his ascendant. So it is exactly on his ascendant, and so it is going to be significant. This is actually the second of five. We're going to have three this year and two next year. The first one occurred on the 26th of June. That was right around um, the impeachment. I think it was right after the impeachment, and he had gotten exonerated at that time. Pluto and Capricorn, which is one of the sort of characters in this particular aspect, is the power structures and the need for transformation of those power structures. Pluto and Capricorn is a very powerful archetype. Of course, Pluto is power and Capricorn is authority. And so we have a sort of, as we've been moving through this Pluto in Capricorn energy since 2008, we have certainly seen the underside of Capricorn, um, and things have been exposed through Pluto and Capricorn, but things haven't necessarily broken down per se. It's like everybody sees the rot, but nothing is getting done. And that is changing, actually. That is changing. And part of that change has to do with the fact that Eris is making squares to Pluto, or Pluto is actually making squares to Eris, because Eris is a much slower planet than Pluto. They're actually both considered dwarf planets. They both come from the Kuiper belt. And so there is this sort of energy of soul attached to them, and certainly the evolution of the soul, and both our personal, in our personal souls, and how that might affect your personal chart, but certainly the soul of the world, right? Our own evolutionary journey. Now, Eris was discovered in 2006, so she's been around since the beginning of time, I guess, but but we didn't know about her until 2006. She was originally named Xena, and then they changed it because they didn't want her name. They didn't want the planet named after um, a character, a television character. Although Xena is a great television character for her to be named after. Um, and then they named her Eris. Eris was the sister of Ares, and she's considered the goddess of discord. So, and I don't know about you, but there's been plenty of, I mean, there's always been discord, but like discord big time. 2006, of course, was the George W. Bush presidency. And I don't know about you, but that was hell for me. Um, anyway, so this, and Eris, okay, let me talk about Eris. Eris is kind of the pissed off feminine, one of her archetypes. She creates discord, but she utilizes the pride of those in power to work against them and to create chaos. So she just sort of pokes the bear, and the bear creates its own kind of chaos. And the bear being the power structures or the people in power. Um, and so there is a energy of self-undoing with this when it comes to those in power, and we certainly see that in Donald Trump. Most of his problems that he has created for himself by the way he went about it, or the fact that he wasn't like, you think about the amount of power that the president of the United States has. If he was smarter about it, he could have really caused some big problems, and we already have big problems. So in a way, the fact that he's a little bit less evolved in a way, he's very much id. He's very much id, that id energy. That maybe perhaps we are um, lucky in a certain way to have him. And I know some of you are going to be like, "Oh, come on," but you know there are a lot of evil people out there, and that are smarter, and God help us, or Goddess help us, if one of those ever got in power. So we have to think about that. And of course, it's not just Trump, but it's the people who back him, that are the real sort of power behind the throne. And I think that's also true in Russia when we talk about Putin. It's not really Putin, but it's the power behind the throne of Putin. He's sort of the front man, and Trump is the front man for us here in the United States. Only he's like a carnival barker, right? All right. Well, that's enough of that. So let's see. So these 5 aspects are occurring. The first one occurred in January. This one is occurring on June 14th today. And then the third one, I think it's October 9th, maybe. I will do a specific astrological look at this. I'm just getting all the charts together, and trying to make something cohesive that isn't too technical, that you guys will understand easily. So I'm working on that. It just takes more effort than reading a cards, because I have to pull up charts, and I have to evaluate, and I have to put it into like a PowerPoint. So you I will talk about that. Um, there's just so much going on astrologically, it's hard to keep up. And there's also, a lot happening in my own life, of course, because it's hitting everything in my chart, as what you would expect, right? Things to be happening. All right. So I'm going to be I'm not using a tarot deck. I'm using the Illuminated Earth Oracle deck. It's a little different. So let's see what comes up. I'm going to do a Celtic cross to get, or maybe a truncated Celtic cross. It depends on how it comes up. So this is, what are we here to, what's the question? This is looking at the Pluto Eris squares and the energy of that square, and perhaps the journey that we take as we're experiencing this aspect, and perhaps an outcome. We'll see if an outcome comes. Okay. So this is the immediate environment. So this is what we are experiencing right now. Okay. And so we have a card called Transient. Transient. And what's interesting about this card, incidentally, this is called the, I know I said this, the Illuminated Earth Oracle, but it's from an artist out of Seattle, and her name is Claire Mack. I've used these before. They're just so beautiful. Okay, let's pull this. Let's put this card right here. And what we're seeing here is, this is actually the Lunation Cycle, the 6 phases. I mean, the 8 phases of the moon. Um, and what's interesting about this is that this phase between this square between Pluto and Eris is actually in this phase right here. It's the last quarter phase. It's the phase between, so this is the new, this is the first quarter, this is the illumination of the full moon, and then this, oops, is the last quarter. And the last quarter is about revision, turning your back on things, um, revisiting, and then letting go of some of the structures that have held things to a certain extent together. Um, I've been trying to figure out when the initial conjunction was between Pluto and Eris. It was a long, long time ago. Pluto takes 250 years to go around the zodiac. Eris takes about 557 years to go around the zodiac. So when they made their conjunction, I believe it was somewhere, could have been in the 16 or 1700s. I still have to do that research. So something that was sort of started at that time has come sort of 3/4 of the way around when it comes to the evolution of us. The thing is, for most of that time, we didn't know anything about Pluto, and we didn't know anything about Eris. And so when you don't, because we didn't know they were up there, when you don't know the planets are up there, they work on an unconscious level. So a lot of what is coming to fruition at this time, this last quarter crisis in consciousness, questioning your beliefs, questioning the structures of authority, questioning authority, all comes up in a very conscious way because both planets are now, we're consciously aware of them. But most of what's been going on previous to this has been unconscious. So, in fact, when Eris moved into Aries in 1925, we still didn't know about Pluto. Pluto wasn't discovered until 1930. So, and Eris has been in Aries since then, and will continue to be in Aries for a long time. Um, and she was the sister. Eris was the sister of Aries, so it kind of makes sense. But she is the goddess of discord, and we've had a lot of discord since 1925, haven't we? A couple of world wars, many genocides, all kinds of stuff, right? So it's heavy duty energy. So this, as the initial energy here, says that this is, so where we're at is where we're at. That's what this card says. Let's see the challenge to where we're at. Okay. And we get multiverse here. This is a lovely card too. So what multiverse says to me is that we have the universe that we know, the our level of consciousness, what we see as reality, is actually not the whole story. And there are those of us who are aware of that, and there are many people who are not. And so as we move through this challenging time in our evolution, we have to sort of remember, or maybe not remember, or maybe it is remember, but come to understand that there are larger forces at work, and while there are larger forces at work, there are also larger forces to help us through this. This is a transition. This is an awakening of sorts. This is an ability for us to open up to other levels of consciousness. And when you open up to another level of consciousness, you're actually opening up to a whole new world. Just as becoming conscious of Black people suffering unduly at the hands of police, which sounds like maybe we should have all known that, but there are some people that didn't. Suddenly they see it and they're like, oh my God, a whole new world is opening to them. And in that opening of that world, they get to understand what other people are going through. And that's the same process that we go over and over again when our world expands. And we are cracking open the egg. We are cracking open the egg. Okay, let's see what's at the root of this. Okay, and we have the path here. And here we have, these are the Himalayas, or the Himalayas, as they say. We have a mandala up there, and we have the peace flags here. So really what this is saying to me is, while Eris is an energy uh, associated with war and strife and discord, it's really about the path of peace. We're being required to walk the path of peace, the path of balance, and we cannot have peace. You know, while one of us suffers, we all suffer, right? We're all connected. And so this is just an opening, a further opening of that idea of we are all sort of in this, but we're not all going to experience it the same way, because everybody's at a different level of awareness, and everybody has a part to play. And some people will be out there protesting, while other people will be home holding space, while other people will be holding the old paradigm close to their heart and not want to change. But it's all part of some sort of plan that is beyond perhaps our comprehension. I mean, we could call it God, right? If we wanted to, or we could call it Goddess. Uh, but ultimately, it's an opening up of our consciousness to realize that what we see here is not the only story, and that if we can break the chains that bind us, and those chains are mostly mental, right? Because in your heart, if you were to look at the situation, we'll use Black Lives Matter. If you were to look at the situation of Black Lives Matter through the lens of your heart, you would say, well, of course Black Lives Matter, and of course this is wrong, and of course, but when you look at it within the structure of your mind, and you can rationalize the things that are happening to these people, or you can like still be attached to some old ideas about the difference between blacks and whites. You're not you can't, because you're not in your heart, right? So the heart never lies. um, and so this is really, at the root of this is for us to remember that we are both earthly and godly. And it's that place within us, that heart space, that we have to find the balance within, so that we can uh, open up the our our vision and sort of move into that sort of multi-universe energy. Um, And this is happening at every level of consciousness. It's not just this one. As above, so below. So we are all evolving together. We are evolving as a species of humans. The animals are evolving as a species of animals. The earth is evolving a planetary consciousness, right? So everything is evolving. Everything is moving up the evolutionary spiral. And if we can sort of know that, and sort of step back from it and get perspective in that way, it will make this journey that much more, it will make it less painful and more full of joy. Okay, let's see what's in the past. Okay, we have the Earth card here. And I think this is the idea that we are alone. We're isolated on this little planet. There is no connection to, we're here all by ourselves. It's us against the world, so to speak. Um, and I think that this is um, I also think this is part of the Earth's evolutionary process, and there, and our realization of perhaps that this is the only Earth that we have. Really, this is our home planet. Um, quite frankly, you can't shit where you eat, and that's what we do. And we wonder why we get sick, and we wonder why, um, the way we treat the earth, and the way we treat animals, and the way we treat our oceans. And it's interesting because the other day, when Trump went on his little trip across the street, and tear gassed the peaceful protesters and such, and then like the next day, or the next few days, they created this like cage around the White House. He is symbolic of the isolation that we feel, and it but we're not isolated if we open up to love. Just like if he opens up to love, then all will flow to him, and all will flow to us, right? So there's this sense of isolation that is not necessary, and I think that's what the earth in the past sort of is talking about in this reading. Let's see what's in the sky. Okay, so this is the meandering road, the long and winding road that leads to your door. Yeah. So, what this says is that there are many twists and turns in this journey, but we continue to move upwards. We continue to move towards the sun. You can see the sun there. There is the center path right down the center, and then there's the path that sort of meanders. The path down the center in this card reminds me of the middle path in the Tree of Life, which is the path of the mystic. And so, for those mystics out there, we can see the straight line, but most people have to meander, and they have to have their process. And so I think we need to be at peace with the process that people go through, including our own process. That idea that we should know better, or that all of this bunk is really just our mind, trying to keep us sort of locked up in our ego, judging ourselves and judging other people. It keeps us in our mind and doesn't put us in our heart, which is the place as humans where all our power lies. So if you can remember to be in your heart, you're as powerful as, quite frankly, as God, goddess, all that is, because you are harnessing the power of the divine and blending it with the power of manifestation. Oh my God, what could we create? Let's do it. Okay, this will be the outcome card, I think. Okay, and we get a memory card here. This is just a lovely card as well. I love these cards. I wonder if this is what the artist looks like. I don't know. It would be kind of cool to know. But what this says to me is, and it's funny because when I think of Eris or Erin, or the names that begin with ERI, I always think of a redhead, right? So there you go. And she has behind her a dream catcher. She's holding a feather. There's a little canary, uh, like, I guess, pendant or picture over her heart. Um, and so this says to me, we have to remember who we are. That this whole thing, this whole uh, energy that we're going to be going through in 2020, 2021 with this Eris Pluto square is to remember who we are. And the fact that a woman comes up in the final card says to me, remembering the power of the feminine as it balances the power of the masculine. So this is really about balance. It's about being in your heart. It's about, we have a canary here right in her heart chakra. It's about singing your unique song, dreaming your unique dreams, remembering that you have the power to do that. Whew, that was powerful. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. I'm feeling very empowered by that. So I hope you did too. If you're wondering, this is selenite that I'm wearing. A friend of mine, Nikki, Art by Nikki, I think .com, she makes these. They're very powerful and very beautiful. In fact, I'll show it to you because I don't know if you can see it up close. I know sometimes when I wear stuff, you like to know what it is. See, it's like it's wrapped. I think she wraps it in aluminum. I think that's aluminum. And this selenite connects you with your higher self, which is really what, you know, Eris is trying to do as well, reminding us that we are spirit as well. All right, guys, like and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.